But I wonder if Matthew would endorse the, what £250 million it would cost to actually build a block of flats or buy a block of flats in central London?
It would be a big initial outlay, wouldn't it?
It'd be a cheaper solution in the long run.
Okay,
It's good to see you both.
Karen, yeah, good to
Thank
talk
you.
to you. Thanks very much indeed.
And do contact us. You already are about. You've got your views about that.
Yes, indeed.
On the whole, not terribly complimentary about MP Secondhams, but let us know what you think.
16 minutes past 7. Coming up on Breakfast a little later on.
I won't be tried.
Could be them. Graham Norton talks to us about the hunt for a Nancy to star in the West End.
Look at that. Good, healthy peat bog. When it's like that, it's fantastic for the environment, sucking up carbon. Problem is, there are big chunks of it that aren't like that, and when it gets sick, it becomes one of the most polluting things in the country. In a few minutes' time, I'm going to tell you what scientists plan to do about it.
That was a racetrack. It was supposed to be soft to very, very soft.
Yes,
but,
I don't think that would be very good for the horses.
I suspect. Matt is there with the weather. Good morning.
Very good morning to you. Yes, there's been quite a bit of rain here through the night, but the lads here are doing a good job in making any pitch mark repairs to the course itself. There's actually 3 courses here. Races anything from 2 miles long to around 4 miles and 1 furlong. The big race itself, though, the Gold Cup, is over the new course, 22 fences, and I don't suspect the weather will have a huge impact on the going today. We have, of course, those strong winds during the week, but winds are light at the moment. It's a fairly calm start here. Cloud is starting to gather just a little bit at the moment, and it will produce a few spots of rain through the day, particularly into this afternoon, but nothing too heavy at all, and it should be a fairly mild day really for this stage in March. Across the rest of the country, it will turn out to be quite a mild day, but a bit of a chilly start. Cloud will steadily increase, but a lovely sunny start really across the northern and eastern half of the UK. The cloud towards the southwest, bringing those little bits and pieces of rain and drizzle across southern counties of England, South Wales, gradually nudging its way ever further northwards. It'll always remain a bit murky around some coasts of Devon and Cornwall, even into the afternoon. This is seen at 3 o'clock, but as you can see, temperatures not too bad at around 11 or 12 degrees. Patchy rain here at Cheltenham, as there will be across central and southern parts of Wales through the afternoon. Brighter skies to northern areas of Wales. Fairly bright throughout the day for Northern Ireland, but into this afternoon it will turn cloudier, and for Fermanagh, for instance, we could see some rain start to edge its way in. Scotland, though, 1 or 2 showers around, but by and large it's going to be dry, good deal of sunshine around, as it will be across much of northern and eastern parts of England. South Midlands and in across southern parts of England, it's going to be a cloudy afternoon, and again here there'll be some further spells of mainly light and patchy rain or drizzle, but mild all in all with highs of around 13 degrees. Now through this coming night, we're going to see the rain become a little bit more prevalent, particularly to the western half of the country. It will be quite a damp, misty and murky night in many areas, quite mild though, with temperatures no lower than around 7 or 8 degrees towards the south. For the far north of Scotland though, a chill in the air, touch of frost to take us into Saturday morning, but it's here where the best of the sunshine will be through the day. Most of us having a cloudy start to the weekend, rain in the west, some heavy pulses for southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England, but temperatures up to around 13 degrees. And then into Sunday, the rain confines itself to the southern half of the UK during the day. It brightens up further north, but it will be quite chilly as a northerly wind starts to dig in. That's how it's looking. I'll have more throughout the morning. Back to you both.
Matt, thanks very much. Just give us an idea of what's going on behind you as you're talking to us.
All right, they're just filling in all the little holes in the actual course itself, just to do any essential repairs to get them through this coming day.
Good, Matt, thanks very much. Now, they probably... what was that?
Bit of inside knowledge.
Yes. As you'd expect when he's there. 90 minutes past 7, they probably hoped it would give them security in the twilight years of their lives. Instead, thousands of British pensioners have become victims of a multi-million-pound fraud.
A father and daughter based in Florida are believed to have masterminded the scam, which involves selling worthless shares. Well, Bob Wishart from the City of London Police is involved in the investigation. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Just explain how this scam worked.
Yeah, the 2 people we arrested, Paul and Xavier Gunter, are we regard as the main organisers in a fairly sophisticated multinational scam which is targeting UK investors and selling worthless shares to them.
And many of the victims of this were British pensioners?
Of the majority, I'd estimate over 95% of the victims were UK pensioners. Why
were they targeted specifically? I mean, how did they work and manage to persuade these people to part with their money?
They're regarded as a good a good target in terms of mass marketing. And what we found is that they've hooked into people who are already in the investment business, perhaps who already hold a portfolio of shares. And through sophisticated mass marketing techniques.
Well, glossy brochures, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and cold calling, very hard sell, cold calling, many times a day, eventually persuading people to part with their cash to buy worthless shares.
And Bob, in terms of the City of London Police involvement, he is British. What is his status?
He's a British national. He is in the process of applying for citizenship in the United States, and clearly that is in abeyance whilst this investigation continues.
And in terms of anybody watching who has a relative who may have been affected, what are the chances of getting money back?
Well, we are actually fairly confident that we'll get some of the money back. We know of a turnover of £35 million already.
35 million?
35 million. And we're working very closely with our American colleagues in Canada and in other jurisdictions to actually retrieve assets, because clearly a lot of it has turned from cash into property and other high value property.
Bob, it's good of you to give us your time. Bob Wishart, thank you very much indeed. Thanks.
Now, with its wild and beautiful landscape, the Peak District is a major attraction for walkers. But peat moorland pollutes the atmosphere more than airliners.
And now scientists have drafted in school children to help them check the state of the area. Breakfast Richard Westcott is on the moor digging. Good morning.
Good morning, look at that. If you live in the north or the Midlands, the chances are the water in your cup of tea will have originated on land like this, the peat bogs. They're absolutely vital to the environment, and when they're healthy, like a lot of this is, I think we've got a camera on the top of the truck, we can give you a bigger view of where we are now in the Peak District. When they're healthy, they're fantastic. They suck up all this carbon. Most of peat is carbon. But the problem is when you get fires, when the vegetation goes, when there's pollution, they become polluting. They chuck all that carbon back into the atmosphere. It's National Science Week, so scientists are recruiting lots of school kids, A-level students and so on, to help them find out which bits of the moorland need help.
Healthy, lush moorland. It isn't just inspiring to look at, it cleans up our air, trapping carbon. But when it's sick, when it's bare, it releases that carbon. So right now, it's thought our peat moorlands are 5 times more polluting than our airline industry.
Hopefully you can hear me because it's seriously windy up here, but I want to give you some idea of the speed that this moorland is eroding away. See that tuft of grass there? That was the top of the hill 60 years ago. Today, obviously, we're down to here, so that much has eroded away in 60 years.
Well, it beats a day in the classroom. These are some of the hundreds of school children now helping scientists assess the state of the Peak District.
This lovely mud that Paul dug us up earlier with his hands, just got to fill it with to 2 with the soil. Here's one we made earlier.
Right.
That you can actually then just check that it is around the right one.
Right, I'm going to do a bit of the experiment now, which involves chucking this. Okay.
So he picks up a random point in the quadrat, hence and closing his eyes, and then you have to see what he's touched. So you can see it's touched some narrow grass and some moss as well.
It's very important we all need to do our little bit for the environment and make sure that, because if we don't, then it's just going to be destroyed and there'll be no moorland for our children and our children's children.
Their results will help the experts find trouble spots. Sometimes it's obvious though. This Martian landscape isn't down to global warming, it's down to 200 years of fires, overgrazing and heavy industry polluting the soil so nothing grows back.
It's not something that we can't resolve, but we do need to act quickly now, because in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, we could have lost the majority of these areas completely.
So it can be repaired, but it'll still take many years to recover.
That's called sphagnum, I've found out, and that's how a lot of peat here starts. So there you go. Now, Laura and Jessica, you haven't done your experiments yet, or you're doing some bits and pieces this morning, but what school are you from?
Hope Valley College.
That's local school, isn't it?
Yeah.
So your science lesson starts, it's next week, is it?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
What are you going to be doing?
Testing the pH of the water table and doing some
Checking out the vegetation here as well. So you've got some advanced equipment. Talk me through it.
Okay, what we're basically doing is we put this quadricept down and we check what plants are actually inside the square. So then we can check the vegetation and what's growing and stuff. And then we check the water table by using a meter ruler.
Looking forward to having a lesson outside of the classroom. Yeah, no mucking about though. Let's just talk to Dr. Fred Worrell. You're from the University of Durham. I mean, these children are helping you coordinate all your results. How useful is it to get that kind of manpower?
Well, there's just not enough scientists to go around, so what we need is people out monitoring the health of such a large area as the Peak District National Park. So there's 700 square kilometres out here, and we need to cover all of it, not just the little bits that we can study in detail. We need that widespread, that spatial knowledge.
It's easy to see all of the damage that's gone on and just think, it's got something to do with global warming, but it's a lot more complex than that, isn't it? A lot older, the damage.
Yeah, the damage could be resulting from things like the deposition, atmospheric deposition, so stuff, acid rain, and that could have resulted from the 19th century, let alone just last year or the year before.
Particularly around this part of the world.
Yes, because we're so close to the cities of Manchester and Sheffield.
And when this all sort of ends, when they've done the experiments and so on, how long does it take before we get some answers back?
It's pretty rapid. I mean, the sort of measurements they're taking are relatively easy to analyse. The problem is that we need the all of them, and that's always been the biggest problem: is getting the large number of those data, and actually having the space, having the spread of them across the area. And so that's where the schools are contributing.
Fabulous. Right, it's all part of National Science Week, like I say, so they've got a week's worth of experiments and then they're doing more in September to follow up.
Richard, thank you very much for that.
Interesting. 27 minutes past 7. Much more to come on breakfast this morning, including who is that horsing around in Cheltenham?
Yes, and I'm having a lovely time this morning in a restaurant. I've had tea and everything. This is what it's all about today, the Gold Cup. At 3:30 this afternoon, this is what Denman and Quarto Star will be battling out for in front of a crowd of about 60,000 people. Which way are you betting? Well, we'll give you a clue with Claire Balding shortly. But first, it's time for the news, travel and weather where you are.
Good morning. A 2-year-old girl's in a critical condition after being pulled from a fire by emergency crews in Oldham. She was rushed to hospital after the blaze at a house on Kearsley Street just before 10 o'clock yesterday morning. She's suffering life-threatening burns and is in intensive care. A prison reform group has criticised the government for not doing enough to prevent women committing suicide in jail. Between 2002 and 2003, 6 women committed suicide in Style Prison. Following the death of a 7th woman in 2006, a government review made a number of recommendations. But the pressure group Inquest claims little's changed. Rupinder Bara reports.
In 2006, Valerie Hayes was the 7th woman to be found dead in a space of 4 years at Style Prison. She had a history of mental health problems and drug misuse. Following her death at Style, a government review was set up to look more closely into what should happen to vulnerable women like Valerie when they're sent to prison. It was known as the Corston Report, and its main recommendations were to divert women away from custody and focus more on community-based alternatives. However, the group Inquest say despite government promises following the report, there's been little change.
Very sadly, the government have been extremely slow, have wanted to conduct more reviews, more ministerial talking shops, rather than implement action that is so desperately needed.
In a statement from the Ministry of Justice, we were told that a cross-government group had been set up to look into alternative community interventions for low-risk female offenders. But so far, no changes have been made.
And we'll have more on that story on North West tonight at 6:30. 2 men are due before Liverpool magistrates this morning, charged with the murder of a Somali-born teenager. 17-year-old Ahmed Mohammed Ibrahim died in the early hours of Tuesday following a fight in Croxteth Drive. A civic ceremony will take place later this morning to reveal the developers who will be turning the former site of the K Shoes factory in Kendal into a £100 million shopping and apartment complex. The shoe factory closed in 2003. Britain's oldest art space, the Blue Coat, reopens in Liverpool this weekend in a new building at a cost of £12.5 million. The Blue Coat's been on the artistic landscape for nearly 300 years and has featured works by the likes of Van Gogh, Picasso and Tracey Emin. Later this year, Yoko Ono will exhibit again at the gallery as part of Liverpool's Capital of Culture. Football and Bolton were knocked out of the UEFA Cup last night. They lost 2-1 on aggregate to Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. And the weather, a fine dry day with light winds and sunny spells, highs of 10 degrees Celsius. Tonight, rain spreading across all parts, heavy at times and some mist around too, lows of 4. And on the roads this morning, Billinge Road is closed in Wigan. That's due to a car accident there in the early hours of this morning. That's all from me. I'll be back in half an hour. Bye-bye.
Good morning, you're watching Breakfast with Simon McCoy and Susanna Reid.
Our main story this morning, the detailed expenses of every MP are likely to be made public for the first time. The BBC has learnt that claims made by MPs over the past 3 years should be published later this year.
Well, yesterday Parliament published the so-called John Lewis list of expenses that politicians can claim for their second homes. It includes a £10,000 allowance for a new kitchen, £6,000 for a bathroom.
In other news, thousands of Britons, many of them pensioners, have become victims of a multi-million-pound fraud. A father and daughter based in Florida are believed to have masterminded the scam. Well, Bob Wishart from the City of London Police is involved in the investigation, and a short time ago I asked him whether victims would be likely to see their money again.
We are actually fairly confident that we'll get some of the money back. We know of a turnover of £35 million already.
35 million?
35 million. And we're working very closely with our American colleagues in Canada and in other jurisdictions to actually retrieve assets, because clearly a lot of it has turned from cash into property and other high-value property.
The Queen will officially open the new Terminal 5 at Heathrow today, less than 24 hours after an intruder was arrested for getting onto a runway at the airport. Strict security will be in place for the Queen's visit. Terminal 5 has cost more than £4 billion. The departure hall is the length of 4 football pitches.
The majority of children who fail reading and writing tests at primary school may be suffering from undiagnosed dyslexia. That's according to government-funded research. The charity Extraordinary People says the disorder may affect up to 1 child in 5. They want more specially trained teachers to spot the condition.
New parents could be allowed to take leave together for the first 6 months of their baby's life under new Conservative Party proposals. The Tory leader David Cameron says mothers and fathers should be able to exchange and share their statutory time off work to ease the responsibility of childcare. Those are the main stories this morning, 7:33. Still to come, learning or just playing why computer games could help children's maths skills and behaviour.
The Cheltenham Gold Cup today, that leads the sports news, so where better for Sue Thill to be than Cheltenham?
It's not very
there
big,
it
is
Look.
it, Sue? Yeah, I know, look. I don't dare touch it now. I almost dropped it about 5 minutes ago, so I thought I'd better put it back on its plinth. Kauto Star and Denman, the two very, very main contenders for this epic race this afternoon. Kauto Star, the defending champion, and Denman, the great pretender, both from the same stable. It promises to be an afternoon of very high drama. About 3:30 this afternoon. Get yourself in front of a TV set or listen to the radio, and you can hear the commentary on what promises to be a fantastic race. Have a look at this view. I'm in the panoramic restaurant here at Cheltenham Racecourse. Just down there is the finish line, where people who've paid about £600 to spend the day here having some fine food and perhaps a glass or two of wine or the fizzy stuff can sit and watch the finish line and the climax to the Gold Cup, amongst other races, 9 races in all today. Cleve Hill in the distance setting the backdrop to a fantastic arena here of sport at Cheltenham. And it really is the festival, the 4-day festival, one of the biggest things now in the sporting calendar. So I came along yesterday to have a roam around the racecourse, waste some money, of course, lose a fair bit, and just find out exactly why Cheltenham is so popular.
Betting, booze and a bevy of beauties. Just 3 of the reasons why this is the place to be this week.
Around 250,000 people come to the festival every year. The hotels and bars in Cheltenham are packed, and that brings in about £50 million for the local economy. And a lot of that money comes from the Emerald Isle. Why did the Irish love horse racing and Cheltenham so much?
I don't know, it's just part of our culture at home, you know, it's the music, it's the Guinness, it's just having a good time, and, you know, that's part and parcel of it.
What do you fancy the horse yourself?
And for the last 40 years, Father Sean Breen has brought religion to racing.
There's nothing wrong with betting. There's nothing in the Bible against betting. There is against excess. So if you can handle your betting, keep it moderate, same as everything else.
How much do you have a flutter with when you do have a bet, and are you good at it?
Sometimes. Nobody, I keep the day job. Nobody makes a living. Very few people make a living out of professional gambling. The bookies have bigger cars than us all the time.
Perhaps bigger pockets too, with over £600 million set to be gambled on this year's festival.
So I've had a chat with Father Breen, and he's given me a very hot tip in the second race, and I'm going to put £1 of my very hard-earned money each way on Joe Lively. That's for the winner. That's not our horse, is it?
No, it's not, unfortunately.
Maybe a little bit of divine intervention next time, Father.
More.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, after the day I had yesterday, I tell you what, I'm not paying for this champagne breakfast. But the nice Claire Boulding is. She's down here at Cheltenham working for Five Live. Very good morning to you.
Hello.
Now, we haven't seen a duel like this between two horses, Cato Star and Denman, since the 60s, since Millhouse and Arkle. Tell us why this epic duel has captured the imagination so much.
I think because it's such an exciting clash of styles. You know, Denman is the big bruiser, he's the big tank, the horse that can motor along at a very high cruising speed. He batters his opposition out of the way. Cato Star is more the stealth killer. He sits in behind them, he quickens at the end, he kills them off with one little burst of speed. He's very fast, he's very agile, he's very flash. Denman's not, he's a great big, just old-fashioned Irish chaser. You know, he's a bruiser. I love both horses. I mean, I just think... And the other, do you know, the other exciting thing is you can't compare times the way you would with athletes. You have no idea how fast they actually travel, because all of our courses are different. You can't really even compare what they both did last year. They both won at the festival last year. And until you get to the top of that hill behind us and see which one is going significantly better, and I think it will be decided almost that far out, nobody knows.
They're from the same stable. They've never raced each other before. Is that going to be a factor? Meeting each other out on the course like that, will it affect them or not really?
Yeah, I think one will turn to the other and say, do you know what, today's my day. They live in the stables next to each other, so actually they see each other every day. They'll have come in the horse box together. And that makes it all the more, you know, for little girls who like ponies, you know, I grew up just, wow, horses. You love all of those details. You love the fact that they share polos on the little ledge between, they've got a window between them, they talk to each other. I was down there actually last week, and Denman's slightly more surly, you know, he turns his back on the stable door and goes, oh no.
He's got a mean streak.
Not another camera crew, whereas Cato Star goes, oh, another camera crew. Is it my shot? You know, he loves it.
Where's your money? I mean, defending champion Cato Star, a lot of people, he is the people's choice in a way because he had such a brave win last year. Denman, the great pretender. Where's your money going?
The ground is crucial. I think it is extremely testing out there, and I think that puts it very much in the favour of Denman.
Do you? So you'll be spending £5 of your hard-earned money?
I don't know.
Perhaps on the nose?
I probably won't have a bet, actually. It's such a good race.
Yeah.
I want to roar home, you know, it's typical sit on the fence. I'll stand down at the last, and I want to really enjoy it, and I don't actually want to feel bitter.
Okay.
Because I've backed the wrong one.
What, like me yesterday? Let's not go into that. Claire, love to see you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day today in the sunshine, the beautiful sunshine here at Cheltenham Racecourse. The weather is set fair, as Matt has been telling us, for a terrific day's racing today. Action-packed it promises to be. It's been a good day in the cricket as well for England, a very good day after that disappointing first test performance. They're certainly back to form in the second test now. Tim Ambrose did make his maiden test century. He resumed on 97 overnight. He managed to make his century, got to 102. England, though, dismissed for 342 in all, but they bounced back with the ball. Jimmy Anderson, the star of the show, taking 5 for 73. The Kiwis all out for 198. And England resumed their second innings. They're 4 without loss. They'll resume on that later on tonight, which means they've got a first innings lead of 148. So that is very, very handy indeed. That's all we've got time for now from Cheltenham. Do stay tuned. A bit later on, we're going to have a chat with Julie Cooper. And Jenny Pittman's coming to talk to us as well in an hour's time and tell us perhaps where her money's going as well. So Claire Balding says, Denman, I agree. Back to you.
Suthel, thank you very much. More from you later on. Thanks.
Now, it's late in the evening, or perhaps it's just getting towards that time when you need to get the children ready for school, but they still haven't done their homework. Instead, they're playing computer games, and no amount of cajoling or threatening is going to work.
Well, your battles may soon be over, because a primary school in Scotland has carried out a trial of Nintendo's brain training games, and teachers found they helped improve not just math skills, but also children's concentration.
Derek Robertson is from Learning and Teaching Scotland, and that's the group behind the project. And Michaela Leder is from the campaigning group, the Manifesto Club. Very good morning to you both. Derek, we've got one of the games here, and I'm going to try and beat my time from the last hour, but lots of parents find it really hard to pull their children away from computer games, but you're actively encouraging children to use computer games. What sort of results have you had?
Well, I work for Learning and Teaching Scotland, and we have an initiative called the Consolarium, which is looking at how games-based learning can have a positive impact on the effective and cognitive development of children. So we've got games in nursery, primary and secondary school, Nintendogs, Guitar Hero, Dr. Kawashima's brain training, all these kind of things. The Dr. Kawashima's brain training, we only had it in a small scale intervention last year, and it impacted on maths attainment really dramatically in a primary 5-6 class in Scotland. Also,
what sort of difference did you see in
well,
those
for
children?
instance, there were children who were going to learning support who, at the beginning of the 10-week intervention, one of the girls scored 23 out of 100, and if you want to look at numbers. And for 15-20 minutes a day, first thing in the morning, that was all, for the 10-week intervention. After that, she did a similar test, and she scored 65 out of 100. Now, a dramatic impact, and that wasn't just one kid, that was across the board.
Michaela, I know you've taught in secondary schools before, and you do a Saturday class now in Leeds. In terms of what you're hearing, are you convinced by this?
No, I'm not. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing computer games. They're harmless enough and they're good fun and they can be useful. But what I'm concerned about is that about the claim that to motivate children we need to use computer games. I think, as Susanna's pointed out, we are facing a crisis of authority where parents can't tell their children how to behave or what to do. Adults cannot tell children what's important to learn to become an educated citizen. I think the best thing to motivate children is to have teachers who believe in subject knowledge, in maths, in history, in English, who really, truly believe that that's important for children to learn and believe in the ability of children to learn it as well.
And Derek, what do you make of that point, that if you tell children in a way that they're going to learn more from a computer game than from the teacher, that undermines the teacher's authority?
No, I don't think we're telling children to learn more from the game. What we're advocating is that teachers can use appropriate games effectively to help open doors to the curriculum. A lot of children don't succeed in school. You know, they fail in school and they don't get any place. What we're finding with a lot of the interventions that we're doing is that it's switching, particularly boys, with things like writing activities. These boys are buying into writing activities because of the context that the game offers, in ways that teachers have said they wouldn't have entertained it in the past. So what we are saying is appropriate use of games such as these things can open the door in the traditional curriculum to help children achieve. That's what we want.
And isn't that the point? Because if you get any boy, girl sitting there doing maths, however they do it, isn't that to be encouraged?
I think we are evading the problem. Last year, on the Radio 4 Today programme, the former Secretary of State for Education said he hoped to improve children's results by giving them fish oil. This year it's called psychology. Next year it might be, who knows, snake oil maybe. I think what we really need is believing in maths, knowing that learning mathematics is important to develop children's minds, and that's the best. There's nothing more demotivating than the teacher who don't believe in their subject. When children see adults who do not believe that learning is important, that learning subject knowledge is important, they are demotivated.
Yeah. I mean, looking at you now doing this, it's addictive, isn't it?
It's distracting, I have to say, because I'm not able to listen to anyone else while I'm doing it. I have beat my time, though.
Well done.
It's 33 seconds. Yeah, I suppose I have made progress, but it's very good to talk to you both. It's a really interesting and controversial subject, and I'm sure parents will have a view on it as well as teachers. Do get in touch with us this morning.
Thank you both very much. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much for your time. BBC Radio Scotland's investigation programme will be looking in more detail at these games at 9 o'clock this morning. I better hand that back to you, otherwise my 5-year-old son will be trying to get his hands on it. Thanks very much indeed.
Now it's exactly 8:15. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. These are the main stories this morning. The detailed expense claims of every MP dating back to 2004 are likely to be made public for the first time.
The Florida shares scam. Thousands of British pensioners have been conned out of millions of pounds.
Also coming up in the programme, Flight of Fancy. Deckers is at Heathrow's new terminal for us. A very good morning to him.
Yeah, you can just about see behind me construction workers putting the finishing touches to the terminal today. They need to get a move on because the Queen's coming this morning to open it all up officially. It's going to be the new shiny home for BA, so we'll ask BA's top boss, will it actually work?
I just called him Deckers. I will pay.
Does he not like that?
Ooh.
Matt's at the races in Cheltenham. Very good morning to you, Matt. They're still at work behind you, aren't they?
They are still at work. Doing a good job, though, but they are filling those holes quite quickly. But it's lovely here at the moment. It's been a really, truly magical start to the day. We've seen the mist just lift steadily off the racecourse itself. Complete contrast to what we had earlier in the week, where gale force winds completely buffeted the whole of the course, causing 1 or 2 problems with some of the temporary marquees. As I said, it's not too bad at the moment. We've got a bit of sunshine here, but if you are heading for the races here at Cheltenham this afternoon, particularly for the Gold Cup race, the cloud will gather and there could be just 1 or 2 spots of rain. At least the winds will remain light and it should be fairly mild. Across the rest of the country, it's a bit of a chilly start. Some sunshine around, but we'll see the cloud gradually gather from the south and the west through the day, bringing rain this morning across southern parts of England and southern Wales. Most, though, further north will be dry with a bit of sunshine on offer. Now, steadily, that cloud will just inch its way a little bit further northwards into the afternoon, still bringing 1 or 2 spots of light rain or drizzle towards Devon, Cornwall, Somerset, Dorset. Nothing too heavy, though, and for some of the coasts, it could be still quite misty and murky. Across Wales, the rain generally limited to the southern areas. Northern parts should be dry and bright, and there will be some sunshine, too, towards the north and the east of Northern Ireland by 3 o'clock. But towards the southwest, the cloud will gather, and we could see some patchy rain just inch its way in towards County Fermanagh. 1 or 2 showers at the moment across Scotland, but by and large they should have faded into the afternoon. Should be a lovely afternoon for this stage in March. Dry, bright, with temperatures climbing to around 12 degrees in Aberdeen. Across northern England, we'll see the cloud gather to western areas, as it will do across the Midlands and across the rest of southern England. But eastern parts should remain dry and bright throughout, with highs of around 13 Celsius. Now, during this coming night, the cloud will take over even more. It will be quite a damp night across western parts of the country. Driest conditions tending to be towards the east and across the far north of Scotland, where there could be a touch of frost to take us into Saturday morning. But it's here on Saturday where the brightest conditions will be. Most of us having a cloudy day. Some wet weather towards the west of the country. Heaviest of the rain generally being across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northwest England. Temperatures are not too bad, despite the cloud and the rain, up to around 13 degrees once again. And into Sunday, well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. We're going to see the sunshine gradually work its way in from the north, quite wet for a time in southernmost parts, but what you will notice later in the day is going to turn colder as a northerly wind digs in. That's how it's looking from a lovely sunny Cheltenham. Back to you both in the studio.
And from us, Matt, over to Terminal 5 at Heathrow, which is where Declan is for us this morning. Good morning, Declan.
Hello. Well, we're just keeping an eye on the preparations that they are making here. There's various testing going on of the security gates. They're also looking at all these fast bag drop desks that you can see. There's a whole slew of them down that way as well, and you can see them up there as well. Thank you, Paul. There are some 90 or so of those desks, and they are pretty central to this whole idea of making this a better experience for the passenger. When you arrive at check-in and then drop your bag off there and then go through that security, the clock is ticking. BA is saying that you'll be able to get from one to the other in less than 10 minutes. So let's talk to BA's top boss, Willie Walsh. Beside him is Sir Nigel Rudd, who's the head of the airports company BAA. Good morning to both of you.
Morning,
I am struck that on Tuesday we were covering you putting up your landing charges and you complaining about it, and the two of you were at daggers drawn, but here you are today standing side by side, and Sir Nigel, it is for your company a big day.
Oh, it's an enormous day for BAA. This is the start of the new Heathrow.
just to remind people, £4.3 billion, not a penny of it from the government, not a penny from anybody else at BAA, has been invested in this, and it's been produced on time and on budget, and it's a genuinely world-class project.
You say on time. I'm sniggering slightly because I'm watching those construction workers doing some last-minute dusting. You'll be all done by 11:30 today, won't you?
I'm assured of that. I'm absolutely convinced of that. When the Queen arrives, it'll all be ready.
All right. And Willie Walsh, of course, a big change for BA this as well. Now, you really are betting your reputation on this, particularly this thing about passengers getting through the airport in 10 minutes, having a much more comfortable experience than they do in other parts of Heathrow.
Absolutely, and I'm very confident that we will deliver. You can see a fantastic terminal building here. It's an amazing terminal facility, and we are going to have great customer service for British Airways customers at Heathrow's Terminal 5.
Let's look at some of the issues that are coming up. The baggage system is state-of-the-art. It's high-tech. If it goes wrong, like it did in Heathrow Terminal 4 just last week, you're a bit stuck.
Well, I think what you've got to remember is the baggage system in Terminal 4 is 20 years old, and it's a baggage system that has had to be changed to cope with the changes in security. This is a state-of-the-art, ready-made baggage system that has been working since 2006. So in effect what we've got here is a terminal building that has been built around a baggage system. So I'm very confident the system will work.
The odd thing is that given the size of this building, given the number of passengers that will pass through it every year, some 30 million, there are some reports around that it's actually not quite big enough for what you need. You're not transferring all of your flights here.
Well, the only restriction is actually the number of parking gates around the terminal building. From a customer's point of view, there is more than adequate space. In fact, the terminal building is designed for 30 million passengers. We will have about 25 million passengers in the first year. So there's plenty of space for our customers. The issue is getting more parking stands for our aircraft.
And so, Nigel, the story for Heathrow is that this is not the end of the journey. There's a lot more work for you and your company to do to keep passengers happy
This is so
keep
exciting.
him happy.
I'm so excited about this, Declan, because this is the start of the new Heathrow. Very shortly we're going to start demolishing Terminal 2. We're going to build Heathrow East, then we'll collapse Terminal 1 as well. And the fact of the matter is, in 4 years' time, 70% of the passengers arriving at Heathrow will be going through terminals that they're not using today. You know, London deserves a first-class airport. We're starting today. This is the new beginning.
So, Nigel, thanks very much. By the way, have you asked him for a discount?
Thank you. Did you get that?
Yeah, we'll get that one later. Right, the two top bosses here at the airport today. A big day for them, big day for their companies. And the show begins with Her Majesty, I suppose, at around about 11:30.
That's an image we're going to be using in the future, isn't it?
Sorry, Simon?
I said that's an image we'll be showing in the future, those two men shaking hands.
I thought he was going to pick his pocket in search of a discount, but it was actually just looking for a handshake.
Declan, thank you very much.
Now it's 7:53. First it was Maria, then Joseph, now it's Nancy and Oliver.
In I'd Do Anything, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber is on the hunt for the latest West End stars.
Viewers can choose Nancy, but the judges are going to pick Oliver. Graham Norton, of course, hosts the show, and he spoke to our entertainment reporter, Colin Patterson.
I'd do anything for you, dear, anything. Please give me another chance. You can do Nancy. There's a Nancy in me, there really is.
Graham Norton, the hunt for a Nancy. What are you looking for?
The good thing is we don't know. That is the good thing. This year, I think anyone can play Nancy. You know what I mean? It's a much more wide open thing, isn't it? You're looking for, it should be old, young, big, thin, and they've shown up in their droves this year. Thousands and thousands and thousands of women.
Look at me. You can take it all because this face is free.
Tell us about the hunt for Oliver, because the public don't get to choose that one.
No, we felt it was just too much, really, to put children through the public vote. So they've come up with a really good idea where each week the 12 perform together, so they never look vulnerable.
Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself one of the family.
And you think it might actually cause a bit of a population explosion?
Listen, I honestly, if you had some regular kids upstairs and you saw these Olivers, you kind of think, let's try again. Maybe we'll get a good one this time.
I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. Well, I called my fish Joseph. I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fanatic. I write plays and musicals.
This series looks like it is once again going to have tears.
Can you take some time off work and find a childminder?
Really? More tears than I was expecting. Because Maria's didn't cry that much. They were those nuns were tough. The Nancy's, I think because also now they know what's at stake. You know, they've seen what's happened to Connie, they've seen what's happened to Lee. It could be them.
Do you know it's Wayne Rooney's favourite film of all time?
Wayne Rooney's?
Wayne Rooney?
Is it the only film he's ever seen?
You saying he's got bad taste?
He saw that and he thought, maybe I'll play football. I'll go outside now, Mom. And he never came back in.
So finally then, what are your hopes for this series?
I hope the public get it right again. They've done a brilliant job for Andrew in the past, and hopefully they will, you know, vote wisely once more.
God, never mind their tears and tantrums. It brings a tear to my eye when I watch people. They're full of dreams and optimism, aren't they? And only one person can get the part.
And I'm not sure. Watching you watch it at home.
I know.
That would be a programme in itself.
I don't think I've got the emotional strength. You can see I'd do anything on BBC One tomorrow night at 7:30.
Now, there's much more to come here on Breakfast, including...
Judith, when you look into your heart, what do you see?
The power of the passion. Actor Joseph Maul will be on the sofa to tell us about the challenge of playing Jesus.
Now that we join our news teams across the UK. We'll see you in a moment.
Good morning. A 2-year-old girl's in a critical condition after being pulled from a fire by emergency crews in Oldham. She was rushed to hospital after the blaze at a house on Kearsley Street yesterday morning. She's suffering life-threatening burns and is in intensive care. A prison reform group has criticised the government for not doing enough to prevent female inmates committing suicide after a number of deaths at Style Prison. 6 women killed themselves at the jail between 2002 and 2003. Following the death of a 7th woman in 2006, a government review made a number of recommendations. But the pressure group Inquest claims little has changed. 2 men are due before Liverpool magistrates this morning, charged with the murder of a Somali-born teenager. 17-year-old Ahmed Mohammed Ibrahim died in the early hours of Tuesday following a fight in Croxteth Drive. A civic ceremony will take place later this morning to reveal the developers who will be turning the former site of the K Shoes factory in Kendal into a £100 million shopping and apartment complex. The shoe factory closed in 2003. Britain's oldest art space, the Blue Coat, reopens in Liverpool this weekend in a new building at a cost of £12.5 million. The Blue Coat's been on the artistic landscape for nearly 300 years and has featured works by the likes of Van Gogh, Picasso and Tracy Emin. Later this year, Yoko Ono will exhibit again at the gallery as part of Liverpool's Capital of Culture. Football, and Bolton were knocked out of the UEFA Cup last night. They lost 2-1 on aggregate to Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. Let's have a look at the weather now. Here's John Hammond.
Good morning. Well, the weekend's not looking all that great, so make the most of this morning's sunshine would be my advice. It's a decent start to the day, dry and bright, if a little bit on the chilly side. We'll all see some sunshine. Cloud will tend to increase from the southwest, making the sun increasingly hazier. And through this afternoon, I think many southern parts of our region will turn more generally overcast. The best of the brightness further north. 8 to 10 degrees the high, not too bad with fairly light winds. Now overnight tonight the cloud thickens up and we'll see some rain spilling into our region. Pretty heavy rain eventually, particularly up over the Cumbrian Fells for example. Not a cold night though, no lower than 4 or 5 degrees. But as I mentioned, the weekend is not looking good. There'll be rain around, particularly on Saturday, gradually clearing away on Sunday. Monday and Tuesday brighter but colder.
Now it's the launch of Sports Relief today, at that time of year when some of the country's best-known sports stars all take part in events to help raise money for charities at home and abroad. Bolton-born Tess Daly has been to Bangladesh recently to find out how some of the money raised last year has been used. And you can find out more about that and some of the fundraising activities across the Northwest with Gordon and Ranveer tonight at 6:30. Some travel news now. Billinge Road is closed in Wigan. That's due to a car accident there in the early hours of this morning. And in Greater Manchester, the M602 has very slow traffic around Junction 2. That's due to an earlier accident. It is now on the hard shoulder. That's all from me. I'll be back again in half an hour. Bye-bye.
Good morning, you're watching Breakfast with Simon McCoy and Susanna Reid.
Opening the books, the detailed expenses of every MP are likely to be made public for the first time. Hello, very good morning. It's Friday, the 14th of March.
Also ahead this morning, the Florida shares scam. Thousands of British pensioners lose their savings.
Dyslexia, the hidden problem. One charity estimates as many as 2 million children could be undiagnosed.
We're live at Terminal 5 for its official opening by the Queen. It's the new home for BA, and they promise a better deal for passengers from check-in here online through to dropping off your bag here at the fast bag drop and then through to security.
It's not a bad place to
Rain
be at
clouds
work.
are looming here.
It's the Peak District this morning. Did you know this is the most visited piece of moorland in the world? Did you know this is the most polluted piece of moorland in the world? That's why scientists have recruited this lot and hundreds of other school children to help them give the Peak District a health check.
Rain clouds may be looming across the UK this weekend, but it's a lovely start here in Cheltenham. Just a few spots of rain, Sue, though, this afternoon.
Yeah, but nothing's going to get in the way, Matt, is it, of a fantastic spectacle for the Gold Cup. At 3:30 this afternoon, Denman and Quarto Star, they're the big two. They'll be galloping up this hill here at Cheltenham. More coming up in the sport a little bit later on.
Sue, thanks very much, and we'll
hope
find
Declan's
out.
all right.
We'll find out what happened to Declan a little bit later on. Good morning. First, our main story, though. The detailed expenses of every MP are likely to be made public for the first time. The BBC has learnt that claims made by MPs over the past 3 years should be published later this year.
Yesterday, Parliament published the so-called John Lewis list of expenses politicians can claim for their second homes. It includes £10,000 for a new kitchen and £6,000 for a bathroom.
The issue of MPs' expenses is yet again under the microscope. Now an all-party committee of MPs, chaired by the Speaker Michael Martin, looks likely to recommend that all expense claims made by MPs over the past 3 years should be made public, whether they like it or not. It comes after the so-called John Lewis list was published. Based on the shop's prices, it's used to work out the maximum amount MPs with constituencies outside London are allowed to claim to kit out their second home. For example, they can spend up to £750 on a TV, £300 on a rug and £10,000 on a new kitchen. Until now, this list had been kept secret, even from MPs, because officials were worried if they knew, the politicians might just claim the full amount. It all adds to the pressure on MPs to be more open about the way they spend taxpayers' money.
Of course we accept the outrage. We accept the loss of public trust and public confidence. Our job as the Speaker's Committee is to get that back, and that's what we're going to do.
A Commons committee is already looking into making changes in the system. Among the options available are replacing the allowances with an increase in wages or a daily flat payment to cover food and housing, or maybe a combination of the two. MPs will be hoping that any changes will mean people will focus more on what they say than what they spend. Rajini Vaidyanathan, BBC News, Westminster.
Thousands of Britons, many of them pensioners, have become victims of a multi-million-pound fraud. A father and daughter based in Florida are believed to have masterminded the scam. Earlier on Breakfast, Andy Gallagher in Miami told us the inquiry was far-reaching.
This investigation is absolutely huge. To give you a sense of the scale, it involves the Secret Service here, it involves customs and immigration officials, it also involves the City of London police and officials in Canada. Now, they have been charged with money laundering, mail and wire fraud and face up to 25 years in jail.
And in a few minutes' time, we'll be speaking to Scott Broom, one of the investors who lost out.
Now, in other news this morning, the Queen will officially open the new Terminal 5 at Heathrow today, less than 24 hours after an intruder was arrested for getting onto a runway at the airport. Strict security will be in place for the Queen's visit, and Declan is at the terminal for us this morning. Good morning, Declan.
Good morning again. Well, security is tighter today, but they're also making the last-minute preparations. The hosts have turned up for the event during the course of today. They are all the BA cabin crew who will be assisting with the opening of the terminal today. It's BA, of course, because the new terminal is the home of British Airways. Some 30 million passengers likely to travel through here every year, and BA is promising them a much better travelling experience than they might get either elsewhere at Heathrow or at other airports. But this big project has been controversial as well with environmental groups and with local residents, as Tom Simons now reports.
5 years to build, the work of 60,000 people. Now Heathrow's gleaming new terminal is finally ready. This week the public have been trying it out. We followed Sean Reeve and his son Isaac for passenger trials.
Your own baggage there?
I didn't pack my own bag.
Yes, you have to say you did pack your own bag.
Now, one bold claim for T5 is that there'll be fewer queues, more checking in by machine. But 5-year-old Isaac isn't convinced.
There's boring waiting. Every minute we get to a different floor. Wait, wait, wait.
T5 is designed so the planes pull up alongside the main building, meaning a shorter walk to the gate, despite the fact this is the biggest covered space in Britain, enough to cope with a massive growth in air travel. At least Dad was impressed.
It's been great. The building's fantastic, lots of natural daylight, lots of shops. I think that'll be a good selection for everybody, and lots of space. Walk around it.
Terminal 5 down there does make Heathrow a lot bigger for passengers on the ground, but it doesn't provide any extra space for planes to take off. So now there is inevitable pressure for Heathrow to get a third runway.
And despite the queues for planes to take off, that's what really worries opponents of Heathrow's expansion. They've promised to fight it hard, just as they fought Terminal 5.
It's a £4 billion project, and unlike some other big famous buildings that you might think of, this one has been completed on time and on budget. And if you want some idea of the size of the place, well, you get some sense of it here in the departures hall behind me, but it's only when you start looking over the edge of the banisters here that you see just how immense this building is. The new home for BA, but for the airport company BAA, not the end of the story yet. Now they have to go and redevelop the rest of Heathrow.
Declan Curry, thank you very much. More from Declan a little later.
Now, the majority of children who fail reading and writing tests at primary school may be suffering from undiagnosed dyslexia. That's according to government-funded research. The charity Extraordinary People says the disorder may affect up to 1 child in 5 and want more specially trained teachers to spot the condition.
Train delays cost passengers more than £1 billion a year in lost time. That's according to the government spending watchdog. The National Audit Office says there were 800,000 separate incidents between 2006 and 2007, causing delays totalling 10,000 days.
New parents could be allowed to take leave together for the first 6 months of their baby's life. That's under new Conservative Party proposals. The Tory leader David Cameron says mothers and fathers should be able to exchange and share their statutory time off work to ease the responsibility of childcare.
A trial is to be carried out in Scottish primary schools to see if computer game consoles can improve the maths skills and behaviour of pupils. It follows a pilot at one school where teachers say they found a transformation in children's abilities after using the Nintendo DS brain training software. Well, pupils taking part in the trial seem to think it's a good idea.
Well, it's better than just doing normal maths on paper and that, because it's interactive. Everyone from the other class saying, that isn't fair, you're getting to play Nintendos, but we were saying, well, it helps you with your maths.
Have you felt your gadgets lack a certain je ne sais quoi? Maybe you need to sparkle them up a bit. The world's most expensive MP3 music player has been on display in London. It's called the iDiamond. Here it is, gold encrusted with 430 diamonds. It has earplugs made of solid 18-carat white and pink gold. It's worth a cool £30,000. A bit more expensive than your average MP3 player.
Would you?
I don't think so. Could you? not would you, but could you? Those are this morning's top stories. Still to come, a cheats feast. Take 1 can of tinned mince and a dollop of frozen mashed potato. But is Delia's recipe a little too hard to swallow? We will be talking to the celebrity chef Phil Vickery after 8:30. Let us know what you think about cheating in the kitchen.
You're watching Breakfast. It's come out to 10 minutes past 8. Now, hundreds of thousands of children could be suffering in silence from dyslexia. Research by the charity Extraordinary People suggests the majority of learning disorders go undiagnosed.
Well, 11-year-old Lenny was having trouble reading until his problems were spotted. And he joins us now. Kate Griggs is from Extraordinary People, done the research. Very good morning to you both. Lenny, let's talk to you first. You have been diagnosed with dyslexia. What was it like in the classroom before and after someone spotted your difficulties?
Well, it was really hard when I wasn't being spotted because, I wasn't getting the help I needed, and I felt like I was being left behind.
So when it came to reading and writing, how did you feel? What were you doing?
I found it really hard because I couldn't read simple words. But then I got the help, and so I could now read stuff.
Kate, what exactly have you screened for? Because it does seem dyslexia gets blamed for anybody who's frankly just not up to learning at this stage that their compatriots are. Are you screening for those at risk of, or do you believe they do have dyslexia?
Absolutely believe they have dyslexia. Dyslexia is a group of cognitive deficits, so it's areas where your brain are not enabling you to learn effectively, but dyslexia also comes with a lot of strengths as well, so it's teachers need to understand that pattern of strengths and weaknesses and then be able to teach the children accordingly. But that is a very precise expertise that's very widely available in independent schools, but sadly not very widely available in state schools. And you can see from Lenny, he's had that support and he's done brilliantly in his SATs test, so it's not rocket science, it's something that has to be in all schools.
So tell us how many children officially have dyslexia and how many you actually think have dyslexia?
Okay, well, if you actually look at government figures on the school census, they found 76,000 children with dyslexia. But our research, we've screened children across years 3 and year 7, and it's 1 in 5 children, which is completely in line with research from America. The National Institute of Child Health in America has found the same incidence.
That 76,000 figure only includes children with fairly severe learning difficulties. So is it true to say the government's only saying 76,000 children have dyslexia?
No, I'm sure there are other children in schools that have been picked up. Those are the children that are identified on School Action Plus or statemented, so they will be receiving very intensive support.
But you think there's many children who have not been spotted and who could benefit from the help that Lenny?
Absolutely. Well, if 55% of children failing their SATs are at risk of dyslexia and specific learning difficulties, that is a major problem in our schools.
Lenny, you've been lucky, haven't you? This was spotted and you've benefited. What would you say to other boys and girls watching you now who may feel that they may have a problem, they're not sure what it is? What would you advise them? What would you say?
I'd probably say put up your hand and ask the teacher for help.
So if you feel in any way that you're lagging behind or you don't quite understand, the hand should go up?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll wish you well.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
30 minutes past 8. Thousands of British investors have fallen victim to a multi-million-pound scam.
Well, one of the investors is Scott Broom in Glasgow. He's on the line now. Scott, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How much money did you lose?
It was £27,000.
£27,000. Now, just explain how this happened. You got a phone call.
I got a phone call from a company who appeared to be working from London, but they were working in Spain. These were a boiler room company, which transpired. They advised me to invest in this company and wire money to America, which I did. After several weeks, and I realised that immediately when I sent the money that this was a con, and I tried...
Scott, at what point did you realise, what made you realise that this was a con?
I was contacted by another 3 of these boiler companies, and one of them explained to me what was happening, I told them you were the third company that contacted me. And they said, well, if you invested any money, you'll have lost it. So that set my alarm bells ringing. So I phoned the bank in America to stop the money. They told me it had been transferred to an escrow agent who is an independent holder of the money between two parties. And I told him to stop the transfer, and his name was Paul Gunther.
I mean, your heart must have sunk, but looking back, do you think perhaps you were a bit naive to hand over that sort of money on the strength of a phone call?
It would appear to be like that, but they are very convincing, very persistent. They don't push too hard to make you suspect. And it's just very convincing. I thought I had received correspondence from them in the past as well, which added to it.
And in terms of getting the money back, Scott, I mean, obviously £27,000, that's money anybody could do with.
Yes, it was for retirement purposes. And it did cause a lot of stress. But I would say to anyone that's been caught, if they can report it to the police.
OK, well,
they
Scott,
should report it.
Scott, thank you very much for that. And indeed, we were talking to City of London Police who were involved in that investigation earlier on, and if you've got any queries, they are the people to contact. But 2 people have been arrested in Florida.
Just turned 16 minutes past 8. Coming up a little later on Breakfast. The Power of the Passion. Actor Joseph Moore will be here on the sofa to tell us about the challenge of playing Jesus.
Prince, Tom Cruise and President Sarkozy at the height of their fame, but could short men be more jealous in love?
Now look at this, good healthy peat bog. Oh, there you go. Problem is, 75% of that is carbon. When this place has problems, all of that carbon pollutes the atmosphere. That's why scientists have recruited hundreds of school children across the country to help them assess the health of the Peak District.
Matt's at the races for us in Cheltenham. Very good morning, Matt. How's the weather looking?
Not too bad here at the moment. It is, of course, Gold Cup Day. Activities already starting to build in the grandstand behind me. That was actually first built in 1979 with a few other extensions. And if you look just behind my other shoulder, a temporary stand there, still without its roof at the moment. Of course, we had those very strong winds early in the week, causing all sorts of problems here, including the complete abandonment of races on Wednesday. But as you can see, it's a lovely start. It's fairly calm here at the moment. We've got a bit of sunshine to begin the day, but we will gradually start to see the cloud build from the south, I think, through this morning into the afternoon. And if you are heading here, just be prepared. There could be 1 or 2 spots of light rain. But it's not going to be too chilly. Temperatures not doing too bad for this stage in March. And of course, with light winds, it should feel reasonably mild. Elsewhere across the country, we've got a chilly but bright start, gradually turning that little bit cloudier through the day. I think the thickest of the cloud throughout this morning into the afternoon will be for the southernmost parts of England and Wales, producing a few spots of rain or drizzle, quite murky around the coast as well. Further north, lots of sunshine, temperatures rising in that sunshine as well, with mainly light winds. Now, if you take it into the afternoon across the country, starting in the southwest, it's going to remain rather grey, I think, here for much of the day. Still quite damp as well, further spots of rain or drizzle. As I said, could affect us here at Cheltenham, also affecting southern parts of Wales. But the North Wales, much of Northern Ireland, mainly dry into the afternoon, perhaps a bit more in the way of rain just edging towards County Fermanagh. For Scotland, any showers this morning dying away. It should be a lovely afternoon, lots of sunshine here, just a light breeze, as there will be across much of northern England. But for the northwest, particularly to the west of the Pennines, we will see a bit more cloud gather and always a chance of 1 or 2 further showers by the end of the day. The cloud also building through the Midlands, remaining dull through much of southern England, but to the east of England, East Anglia and up towards the northeast in particular, lots of sunshine on offer, and it will feel fairly mild. Now, during this coming night, the cloud and the rain will continue to gather across western areas. A bit of a damp night across Northern Ireland and southern Scotland in particular. Far north of Scotland, avoiding the rain, bit of frost here, but it's here we'll see the best of the sunshine on Saturday. Elsewhere for the start of the weekend, plenty of cloud around, outbreaks of rain, heaviest of which across some western areas, but not too chilly, temperatures up to around 13 degrees. Enter Sunday though, the rain confines itself to southern parts of England and Wales for the end of the day. Some heavy rain for a time, brightening skies to the north, but what you will notice, it's going to turn colder. Wind's going into a north or northeasterly direction, and that colder trend will continue into next week. Back to you both.
Matt, thank you very much for that.
90 minutes past 8 with its wild and beautiful landscape. The Peak District is a major attraction for walkers, but peat moorland pollutes the atmosphere more than airliners do.
And now scientists have drafted in school children to help them check the state of the area. Breakfast Richard Westcott is on the moor. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
That looks miserable.
I'm doing my David Bellamy impression this morning. If you're having a cup of tea in the north of England or the Midlands, the chances are the water from it originated in land like this. Fabulous, isn't it? Now, Declan's been in Terminal 5 all morning. I've been on the Peak District. Look how beautiful this is. But did you know, potentially this place is 5 times more polluting than Heathrow Airport? That's how serious the problem is. Why? Because the peat has fires, gets bare, starts eroding, and it throws all of this carbon into the air. It's incredibly polluting. That is why scientists are bringing in hundreds of school children to help them give this place a health check. Healthy, lush moorland. It isn't just inspiring to look at, it cleans up our air, trapping carbon. But when it's sick, when it's bare, it releases that carbon. So right now, it's thought our peat moorlands are 5 times more polluting than our airline industry. Hopefully you can hear me because it's seriously windy up here, but I want to give you some idea of the speed that this moorland is eroding away. See that tuft of grass there? That was the top of the hill 60 years ago. Today, obviously, we're down to here, so that much has eroded away in 60 years. Well, it beats a day in the classroom. These are some of the hundreds of school children now helping scientists assess the state of the Peak District.
This lovely mud that Paul dug us up earlier with his hands, you just got to fill it with two with the soil. Here's one we made earlier.
Right.
That you can actually then just check that it is around the right one.
Right, I'm going to do a bit of the experiment now, which involves chucking this. Okay.
So he picks up a random point in the quadrat, hence and closing his eyes, and then you have to see what he's touched. So you can see it's touched some narrow grass and some moss as well.
It's very important we all need to do our little bit for the environment and make sure that, because if we don't, then it's just going to be destroyed and there'll be no moorland for our children and our children's children.
Their results will help the experts find trouble spots. Sometimes it's obvious though. This Martian landscape isn't down to global warming, it's down to 200 years of fires, overgrazing and heavy industry polluting the soil so nothing grows back.
It's not something that we can't resolve, but we do need to act quickly now, because in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, we could have lost the majority of these areas completely.
So it can be repaired, but it'll still take many years to recover. OK, we've got Katie and Will here amongst others. What are you doing there, Katie, quickly?
We're just measuring the water table using this dip well.
OK, let's have a look. There we go, and then measurement on the back. Fantastic. Now, you two actually start your experiments next week, but we've dragged you out onto the moor to do a bit early. What's it actually like getting out and about doing science?
Fun. It's a bit cold. So
it is this morning, isn't it? What's the point of what you're doing?
Well, we've got to keep an eye on it, because if the moss gets too dry, it won't grow, and then the carbon dioxide it'll produce more carbon dioxide, and then it won't get soaked up, and then the global warming will get worse.
Katie, does it surprise you how polluting sort of beautiful landscape like this can be?
Yeah, it does. I mean, kind of, because we live quite locally, it does concern us, so we do care about it. So
Do you come up here walking at all? And
when it's a bit warmer, I come up just walking around and stuff like.
Fantastic. You're doing your stuff next week. Good luck with that. Let's talk to Rachel very quickly as one of the organisers. Just how useful is it recruiting all these children?
Yeah, it's fantastically useful, especially having local kids getting involved, raising awareness of the issue so they know what's happening in their local environment. It's really, really important, but also it gives us the numbers of people we need to be able to conduct these kind of experiments. We just wouldn't be able to do it ourselves.
Is it reparable, this place?
No, it's it is unique. It's a beautiful, beautiful environment, and you know, it's very, very rare, internationally rare habitat that's being damaged. So it's key research that's happening, that these young people are taking part in as part of National Science Week. It's really important research that's happening.
Fantastic. I was just going to tell you one thing I've learned. Can we get some Svengen? Is this it? Is that Svagnum? Svagnum. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
That is what most peat around here is made of. There you go.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed.
That was Richard and Pete.
Now, being short didn't stop Napoleon, Attila the Hun or Tom Cruise from succeeding, but apparently being vertically challenged makes men more jealous in love.
That's according to new research. So, we've been to Newcastle to find out if short man syndrome really does exist.
Jealous heart. I've seen the research, but I don't believe it.
Why not?
Because I've got some friends who are smallest and they're not jealous at all.
I think they have to sort of make up for the lack of height by being loud and aggressive, and they're not, you know what I mean, tall and slender like myself.
No, I disagree. I know lots of short people who are lovely.
No, I don't think, because he's not jealous or possessive. No.
And I'm only
small.
And with us now, journalist Vincent Graff, who's proud to be 5'1", and the novelist Kathy Lett, who's 5'3". But Kathy, because you're a woman, you're able to wear high heels.
I do. My heels are so high, I get nosebleeds up there. You know, that's why.
Vincent,
excuse me. You say proud to be 5'1", 5'2 3/4.
You see, there is an issue with this, isn't there?
As any girl will say, every inch does count.
Well, quite exactly. Yes. Anyway, do carry on.
Does heightism exist? Yeah. Is it a problem?
Well, I mean, it's difficult because I've always been as tall as I am, so I don't know what it would have been like if I was 6'3". But I'm completely happy with it, really.
Would you describe yourself as more jealous as a result?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, apart from the fact that this research was from a Dutch professor called Professor Bunk. Dutch, so he's obviously about kind of 6'3" because they all are. So I don't think we really need to. And also, he asked people themselves about how jealous they felt. Maybe the small men just happened to be a bit more honest than the tall ones and just kind of told a bit more of the truth.
Kathy, how tall is your other half? And if you met a man who hadn't been as tall as your other half, would it have put you off?
Well, first of all, I think that short men do overcompensate, but I don't think that's such a bad thing because, you know, women prefer men to be witty than pretty anyway. I mean, let's be frank, we do. And I think if you overcompensate by being short, by developing a better personality, also, you know, realising that the Kama Sutra is not an Indian takeaway, so you try harder in all areas, this can only impress women. My husband is 6'1", and he's not jealous at all. But I would wish he was a little bit jealous. You know, I could be swinging from a chandelier with another man's jockstrap between my teeth, and he wouldn't notice. If I was a legless landmine victim arrested in a foreign clime, he'd be all over me. But
of the many issues I know you have, where does height rate, do you think?
Yeah. Well, every time they do surveys about what men and women find attractive in each other, men always put looks first and personality last. Women always put personality first and look last.
They're
I don't think
often lying, I think.
And I don't think. Well, your wife is very tall, and she stayed with you.
No, she's a bit taller than me. She's slightly taller than me. Though she did tell me, rather to my distress, only about 3 or 4 months ago, that within a day or two of meeting me, she thought, well, I wonder if I should sit with him. He is a bit short. But then my marvellous wit and whatever it was, you just said.
But when you're at a drinks party or something, and someone much taller walks in, do you immediately bristle and stand up?
The only reason I hate tall people, well, I hate tall people. You know, the only reason I hate tall people at drinks parties is because you can't see anything else. And the place where I hate them the most is in cinemas and in theatres. That's the times when I'm jealous of them, not when they're
Vincent, I just want to ask, it says on some details about you, you once wore 4-inch heels and walked around town, and that made you feel better?
This was for purely journalistic research. I wore some elevator shoes, they're called, which made me 4 inches taller, but of course they make your trousers 4 inches shorter. And it was interesting, and I probably did get a bit more attention, but it might have been because my trousers looked
And then
so
you were
foolish.
just jealous of men with longer trousers.
Well, exactly.
And surely the most important thing is a towering intellect. I mean, don't you think? Who cares about the height? As long as you can go up to the stellar realms in your conversations, you can, Simon. We know that. Towering intellect,
and
throbbing brain. Yes, he is 6 foot. You're going to kill him now, aren't you?
We'll end on that high note.
Yeah, well,
thank you very
let's
much
left you
indeed.
speechless. Vincent, Catherine, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, and just coming up to 8:30, BBC News 24, of course, will bring you all the latest news from home and abroad.
But here on Breakfast, who's that horsing around in Cheltenham?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to have all the sport very shortly. The big talking point today, who's going to win the Gold Cup? Denman or Corto Star, the defending champion? One of those horses will be galloping up behind me just after 3:30 up Cheltenham Hill to take the honours in jump racing this afternoon. We'll talk to Jenny Pittman shortly, ask her who she thinks is going to win. But first, it's time for the news, travel and weather where you are.
Good morning. The funeral takes place today of Mohammed Shafiq, the father of 7 who was murdered in a Burnley park. The 50-year-old was stabbed as he tried to break up a fight involving his teenage son. 4 people have been charged in connection with his murder. A prison reform group has criticised the government for not doing enough to prevent women committing suicide in jail. Between 2002 and 2003, 6 women committed suicide in Style Prison. Following the death of a 7th woman in 2006, a government review made a number of recommendations. But the pressure group Inquest claims little has changed. Rupinder Bara reports.
In 2006, Valerie Hayes was the 7th woman to be found dead in a space of 4 years at Style Prison. She had a history of mental health problems and drug misuse. Following her death at Style, a government review was set up to look more closely into what should happen to vulnerable women like Valerie when they're sent to prison. It was known as the Corsten Report, and its main recommendations were to divert women away from custody and focus more on community-based alternatives. However, the group Inquest say despite government promises following the report, there's been little change.
Very sadly, the government have been extremely slow, have wanted to conduct more reviews, more ministerial talking shops, rather than implement action that is so desperately needed.
In a statement from the Ministry of Justice, we were told that a cross-government group had been set up to look into alternative community interventions for low-risk female offenders. But so far, no changes have been made.
And we'll have more on that story on North West tonight at 6:30. 2 men are due before Liverpool magistrates' courts this morning, charged with the murder of a Somali-born teenager. 17-year-old Ahmed Mohammed Abreem died in the early hours of Tuesday following a fight in Croxteth Drive. A civic ceremony will take place later this morning to reveal the developers who will be turning the former site of the K-Shoes factory in Kendal into a £100 million shopping and apartment complex. The shoe factory closed in 2003. Britain's oldest arts space, the Blue Coat, reopens in Liverpool this weekend in a new building at a cost of £12.5 million. The Blue Coat's been on the artistic landscape for nearly 300 years and has featured works by the likes of Van Gogh, Picasso and Tracey Emin. Later this year, Yoko Ono will exhibit again at the gallery as part of Liverpool's Capital of Culture. A bionic hand will be shown at a prosthetics conference in Bolton today. The technology, known as the iLimb, has thumb and fingers that can move and grip just like a human hand and are controlled by the patient's mind and muscles. It's hoped the bionic hand could be available on the NHS within 2 to 5 years. And the weather, a fine dry day, light winds, sunny spells, highs of 10. Tonight, rain spreading across all parts of the region this evening, heavy at times and some mist around 2, lows of 4 degrees. That's all from me. See you again in half an hour. Bye-bye.
Very good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Simon McCoy and Susanna Reid.
Our main story this morning, the detailed expenses of every MP are likely to be made public for the first time. The BBC has learned that claims made by MPs over the past 3 years should be published later this year.
Yesterday, Parliament published the so-called John Lewis list of expenses politicians can claim for their second homes. It includes £10,000 for a new kitchen, £6,000 for a bathroom.
Thousands of Britons, many of them pensioners, have become victims of a multi-million-pound fraud. A father and daughter based in Florida are believed to have masterminded the scam. Bob Wishart from the City of London Police is involved in the investigation, and earlier on Breakfast I asked him whether victims would be likely to see their money again.
We are actually fairly confident that we'll get some of the money back. We know of a turnover of £35 million already.
35 million?
35 million. And we're working very closely with our American colleagues in Canada and in other jurisdictions to actually retrieve assets, because clearly a lot of it has turned from cash into property and other high value property.
The Queen will officially open the new Terminal 5 at Heathrow today, less than 24 hours after an intruder was arrested for getting onto a runway at the airport. Strict security will be in place for the Queen's visit. Terminal 5 has cost more than £4 billion. The departure hall is the length of 4 football pitches.
The majority of children who fail reading and writing tests at primary school may be suffering from undiagnosed dyslexia. That's according to government-funded research. The charity Extraordinary People says the disorder may affect up to 1 child in 5. They want more specially trained teachers to spot the condition.
New parents could be allowed to take leave together for the first 6 months of their baby's life under new Conservative Party proposals. The Tory leader David Cameron says mothers and fathers should be able to exchange and share their statutory time off work to ease the responsibility of childcare.
A trial is to be carried out in Scottish primary schools to see if computer game consoles can improve the maths skills and behaviour of pupils. It follows a pilot at one school where teachers said they found a transformation in children's abilities after using the Nintendo DS brain training software.
Those are the main stories. 8:35 now. Here's what's coming up a little later on in the programme. Cooking up a storm. Delia is daring to cut corners in her new BBC series. We'll be discussing why her methods of culinary cheating are dividing opinion.
Just a bit now. From 1908 to 2008, Jane Asher is here to celebrate 100 years of the Ideal Home exhibition. She'll have a look back down memory lane.
It's not all about horses at the Cheltenham races. We catch up with Gilly Cooper for the lowdown on who's wearing what hat.
And would you do anything? We have an exclusive interview with the presenter of the new BBC series to find a West End star. That is, of course, Graham Norton.
And the actor Joseph Moore will be here to tell us about the challenge of playing Jesus in The Passion. That's all still to come before the end of breakfast this morning.
Let's go to Cheltenham for the sport, and she's off.
I'll try and do it as fast as I can. Thank you very much. Morning to you both, morning to you at home as well, yes. Cheltenham Gold Cup Day, always a very special day in the sporting calendar. And I tell you, at about 3:40 this afternoon, just over my shoulder by the finish line, we think either Corto Star, the defending champion, or Denman will be galloping up the famous Cheltenham Hill to take the biggest prize, you would say, in terms of prestige and class in race jumping on the national calendar. Well, Cheltenham Festival is very, very special indeed. It's a 4-day festival now, of course. The day was taken out on Wednesday because of the winds, but it's a terrific event to come to. So I spent yesterday roaming around the concourse here at Cheltenham, just finding out why it is so special.
Betting, booze and a bevy of beauties. Just 3 of the reasons why this is the place to be this week.
Around 250,000 people come to the festival every year. The hotels and bars in Cheltenham are packed, and that brings in about £50 million for the local economy, and a lot of that money comes from the Emerald Isle. Why did the Irish love horse racing and Cheltenham so much?
I don't know, it's just part of our culture at home, you know, it's the music, it's the Guinness, it's just having a good time, and you know, that's part and parcel of it.
What do you fancy in the horse yourself?
And for the last 40 years, Father Sean Breen has brought religion to racing.
There's nothing wrong with betting. There's nothing in the Bible against betting. There is against excess. So if you can handle your betting, keep it moderate, same as everything else.
How much do you have a flutter with when you do have a bet, and are you good at it?
Sometimes. Nobody, I keep the day job. Nobody makes a living. Very few people make a living out of professional gambling. The bookies have bigger cars than us all the time.
Perhaps bigger pockets too, with over £600 million set to be gambled on this year's festival.
So I've had a chat with Father Breen, and he's given me a very hot tip in the second race, and I'm going to put £1 of my very hard-earned money each way on Joe Lively. For the winner, that's not our horse, is it?
No, it's not, unfortunately.
Maybe a little bit of divine intervention next time, Father.
More.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No.
Now, after spending the day with Father Sean yesterday, I can't afford to buy any of the fizzy stuff today. I'll probably be able to afford to buy myself a bottle of water. But fortunately, the First Lady of Racing, Jenny Pittman, is here with me, so maybe she'll buy me a cup of tea afterwards. Morning to you.
Morning, Sue.
You won the Gold Cup twice. This must bring back awfully good memories for you being back here.
This is
the most wonderful place to be in March. Cheltenham can drain the blood from your body as though you're in a blood bank. It can't go any quicker. I mean, honestly, you can feel right as rain 1 minute and as white as a ghost and totally weak at the knees. But also, when you've had a winner at Cheltenham, it pumps the blood back into your body and it's absolutely pure gold.
You've won the Gold Cup and the Grand National, so you know what it's like to be in that very privileged position. Just explain for the people at home who maybe know what the Grand National is but don't quite understand the Gold Cup, just explain the difference, if you could.
Well, the Grand Nationals run over 4.5 miles and it's a handicap, so the top horse will carry 11 stone 10 and the bottom weighted horse will carry 10 stone. So you've got almost 2 stone different in the weight that they will carry, which doesn't sound a lot, but believe me, it is over 4.5 miles. Here, it's just over 3 miles, and all the horses will be carrying the same weight. So theoretically, the horse that wins today is the supreme champion. And of course, the fences here at Cheltenham are quite standard. I mean, you've got the open ditches and then all the plain fences, and but at Aintree, they're vastly different. I mean, you go down to the third fence, for instance, and that ditch there is massive. And then you go down to Beecher's Brook, the canal turn.
And they're big.
They're variable. That's what catches horses out, the fact that they're so variable.
What's it like? What will Paul Nicholls, who's a trainer of Kauto Star and Denman, what's he going to be feeling today? What is it like as a trainer as you approach the big race?
I was thinking what will he be feeling. It'd be a bit like Nut Brittle. I think if somebody asks him the wrong question, he'll probably shatter all over the place. But it's not a day before a big race like this that you want to go up to Paul Nicholls. He will be under immense pressure. Please don't go up to him and ask him for his autograph before a big race.
He's got other things on his mind.
Yes, because, you know, people don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and he will have had immense worry that these horses don't tread on a stone. If you remember, Kauto Star had a bruised foot after he'd won that race at Ascot and had pus in his foot. That, although it appeared to clear up quite quickly, will still be at the back of his mind. There's all the equipment that the horses wear, saddles, stirrup irons, girths, breast girths, some of them. You don't want any of that to break.
He's not going to be thinking about that £1 million bonus, is he? He just wants to get his horses safely around today.
Yes.
Which is going to win, Kauto Star or Denman?
Kauto Star is a very, very classy horse, and he will produce pace and he will quicken off his pace. Denman is a bit of a thug, and he will go the same pace the whole way out.
So a winner, briefly, Jenny?
I don't want to split them. They're lovely horses, and and honestly, the good thing is they've got fresh ground to race on today. There's not a chase before the Gold Cup, so they are going to get the very best of the ground on the steeplechase course.
Okay, so we'll have to watch this space.
I'm with Paul Nicholls. Please come back safely. And let's just have a good day out. I mean, it's fabulous here today.
It is a lovely day out, Jenny. It's lovely to see you. Thank you very much for joining us on Breakfast this morning. We'll have a chat to Judy Cooper a little bit later on this morning and see if we can get her to tip either Denman or Kauto Star. Back to you.
Sue, thank you very much. Back to her later.
To legions of fans, what Delia Smith says in the kitchen goes. But her new series has divided opinion. The BBC's Delia's How to Cheat is a world apart from her days of telling us how to cook using traditional fresh ingredients.
Yep, on the menu this time are tinned minced lamb, pre-grated cheese and this is what's got people really going, frozen mashed potato. So
is Delia dumbing down, like some of her critics say, or just making cooking more accessible? Find out in a moment. First, here's a look at how the debate all began.
What I've got here, first of all, is a tub of ready-made cheese sauce. Put that into a bowl, because it's going to have another little sort of special ingredient in with it. And that is half-fat creme fraiche. What I've got here is a heaped tablespoon. Just spread it over the other ingredients. What you need now, if you're going to have a fish pie, is you need to cover it with some lovely, beautiful, fluffy mashed potato. And what I'm going to use is actually frozen mashed potato. It's all real potato, and somebody's just done all the work. We've got 75% potato, 5% butter, 15% milk, and just salt and pepper. What I'm going to do is put 12 of these on top of the pie. And now we're going to have some other ingredients. And one is strong grated cheddar cheese. And again, it's ready grated because we're cheating and we're saving time all the time.
Got you all going. And Anna says, my husband and I watched the programme. We're shocked at these new tactics. Tinned mince?
Well, with us now, Chef Phil Vickery and the author Rose Prince. Very good morning to you both.
Morning.
Phil, Delia says, you know, just use some of these ingredients because someone else has done all the work. I mean, why not go the whole hog and just buy the fish pie?
I think we're missing the point here. We are all approaching this and look at this from a cook's point of view. Rose is a very good cook. I'm a chef. A lot of people, your viewers, are looking at it from a completely different point of view. They're looking at it from the I can cook point of view. A lot of people in this country, millions of people, cannot cook. My brother is a classic example. He's a farrier, a very good farrier, doesn't want to cook, not interested, but he might have a go at what she's done. Now, if he starts from that small base, then perhaps he will go on to other
Because
things.
otherwise he would just be buying the prepackaged meals and in the oven.
And he's not interested. So I think we need to look at it from a slightly different angle.
Rose, have we been too highbrow with our approach to cooking, using all original ingredients, starting from scratch?
Not at all. It makes me very sad when a renowned food writer goes down this road. I mean, I write about food to make people aware of what's in food. That's been my whole career. I think that the last 6 years, the main thrust of the food media has been raising awareness about battery hens, etc. And what's happening here is just not sustainable. It's okay for a bit to say, well, open a jar, you know, make it easy for yourself. But in the end, the only way we're going to eat better is if we cook from fresh ingredients.
But picking up on Phil's point, it's Sheila from Staffordshire. She's emailed. Delia's book is super. I bought it last night. Entertaining. Preparing the food after a full day at work. It's good food, simple for busy lives. That's where it's pitched, isn't it?
Good food that's simple for busy lives is perhaps a better convenience food, which is pasta or a dried grain. But I don't really buy this idea that this saves time. I watched one of the recipes being cooked on Monday night's programme. It took well over an hour.
And is it something you could make in less than an hour if you didn't use the ingredients she's using?
If we're talking about not having time to cook and coming in from work at 7 o'clock and only having half an hour, it doesn't solve my problem. So I'd have to choose to do something else.
Phil, how much of this is because it's Delia saying it?
Well, I mean, she's an absolute phenomenon, and you know, she's the most successful cookery writer ever in this country. And her advance for her book is hundreds of thousands of pounds, and people do trust her. They do trust her. I think, in fairness, I think she perhaps has gone a tiny bit too far, but I still maintain that we're looking at it from a completely different point of view. If you can't cook, and you want to make a cottage pie, for instance, you get the onions, you get the stock cube, you get the flour, the meat, blow it and go and cook it. If you can't cook or are not interested to cook, then it's difficult. So what she's done is, I think it's been quite clever.
Rose, are we being too snobby? Because if I'm honest, I mean, in my freezer I've got frozen spinach, frozen peas, frozen mixed veg, maybe for the children. In my cupboard I've got tinned sweet corn.
Tinned tuna.
Tinned tuna.
Yep.
So I've got all, I mean, I'm cheating at although I like to think of myself as someone who cooks from scratch, I've got a lot of these cheats ingredients and use them.
Frozen vegetables are not about cheating, they're about supply. I mean, in a place, you know, a temperate climate, we don't have vegetables all year round, so it's good to have frozen spinach in the freezer. What I don't agree with is the idea that you're cooking from ingredients of dubious origin. I mean, we're not getting information about where the, you know, how the salmon was farmed in the fish pie. We don't know where the, you know, what the welfare was for the animals provided the mince in the can. And that says to me that Delia doesn't care about ingredients, and if she says she's not caring about ingredients, then she doesn't care for the people she's actually broadcasting or writing for. That is my personal view, because I care very much about people and what they eat, and I feel that, you know, the most important job to do is to tell people exactly where everything comes from.
Okay, well, let's just have... no, we won't. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Lovely to talk to you.
Going on so long, and so many emails and texts coming in on this.
I know, we want to include them all, don't we?
Yeah. Delia's super. That's
anyway, then we must leave it. Thanks very much indeed. You can see Delia's next instalment on Monday, 8:30, and that is on BBC Two. But do keep your emails coming in because they're very interesting.
They certainly are. Now we're going to go over to Cheltenham because Matt is there, and it's looking good, the forecast.
It's not too bad at the moment. Of course, the weather has had an impact, Simon, this week. Those strong winds during the early parts of the week caused a complete abandonment of races on Wednesday. And it's not the first time weather's showed its hand in the Cheltenham Festival. Back in 1978, the Gold Cup itself, the big race today, it was actually cancelled. It was postponed by a month just because of heavy snowfall. No such problems, though, this morning. It's a lovely, calm, glorious start here. Living a charmed life at the moment. Rain to the east and the south of us. Bit of sunshine though for us at the moment, but the cloud will gather here if you come into the races later, and there is the chance of 1 or 2 spots of rain this afternoon, but it shouldn't be too chilly. Temperatures up to around 11 or 12 Celsius. Across the rest of the country we have got a chilly start, and after a bright and sunny start you will start to see a little bit of cloud gather from the south and the west. But the thickest of the cloud throughout the day will always be across the southern half of England and Wales, and it's here there'll be some further patchy light rain or drizzle, quite murky too around some southern coast, particularly towards Devon and Cornwall, where even by 3 o'clock it will be a little bit grey and gloomy. Quite damp at times too, and some of that patchy rain, as I've already hinted, will drift its way northwards again in towards Cheltenham area and in across central and southern parts of Wales. North Wales should be dry and bright this afternoon, feeling quite pleasant in any sunshine, and still a bit of sunshine continuing across Northern Ireland. Thicker cloud though, never too far away from County Fermanagh, and here we could catch a bit of rain by the end of the day. We've got a few showers at the moment across Scotland, but by and large it's a lovely day here. Lots of sunshine to take us into the afternoon. Temperatures up to 12 degrees in Aberdeen. A bit more cloud for northwest England by 3 o'clock, but in eastern areas and down through much of eastern England it'll be dry and sunny. It's really through the Midlands southwards we'll hold on to the cloud and the risk of some further patchy rain, but mild at around 12 degrees. Through tonight, very cold across the far north of Scotland. Elsewhere we've got patchy rain becoming more of a feature. That will continue into the first part of Saturday. Bit of a cloudy start to the weekend for many of us. That rain heaviest across Northern Ireland and across southern Scotland and northern England. And then during Saturday night into Sunday, that rain will slip its way south with some heavy rain across southern parts of England and Wales, brighter further north, but it will turn a little bit colder. Back to the studio.
Matt, thanks very much. Just discussing baking with Jane Asher. The toaster, the electric kettle, microwave, even the electric lawnmower. Do you know what? They all made their debut at the Ideal Home Show.
And that annual event starts today at London's Earl's Court. It's celebrating its 100th birthday this year, and Jane Asher opens the show later this morning. But first, she's here to take us on a journey back down memory lane. And actually, you brought with you some of the things that at the time everybody said, oh, this will never catch on.
This is 50s, because they've done a wonderful exhibition of some rooms from 1908 when the show first started, and then halfway 1958 there's a wonderful kitchen that I had a look at yesterday, and these, yes, some of the things from the kitchen. In fact, nobody can quite work out what this is.
Isn't that a mincer? Or
I suppose it's some sort of mincer, but look how big the gaps are, so I'm not quite sure what that was for, but obviously some type of mincing.
Health and safety would have things to say about that these days.
They certainly would. Can you imagine? Yes, little fingers going in there. I was amazed, talking of the microwave, to read that that was launched in 1947.
What was it?
Isn't that extraordinary?
As
far back as that.
I wonder what sort of impact that made at the Ideal Home Show in 1947.
Well, I wonder, because I feel I can remember the microwave first being sort of put on the market, and it was very scary, wasn't it? Everyone was terrified and sure they were going to be microwaved themselves as they did their cooking.
And now it's an essential part of kitchen equipment, isn't it?
Kitchen.
And we're surrounded by a 1950s kitchen now.
Yes, isn't it wonderful? Now that really takes me back to my mum's kitchen, because I would have been 10 in the mid-50s, and particularly I remember things like the mangle, the wringer by the side of the sink to wring out the clothes, because of course nobody had tumble dryers, and if you lived in London as we did, there was nowhere to hang the washing, so you'd do this wringing and then hanging up in the kitchen on
one of those racks that went up.
On one of those racks that went up, exactly. Yeah.
So as you walk around the Ideal Home Show, have they presented sort of kitchen sets from different
Well, the
decades?
1908 is a living room, a sitting room, a rather upmarket, rather grand sitting room, which is lovely, very beautiful. But the 50s has the actual kitchen, yes, with the lino on the floor and the wonderful old bits of equipment and stuff. Fascinating.
We're looking at the 1908 living room.
Yes, that is very elegant, isn't it?
I mean, there's features there still,
What struck
you can
me
see in today's living rooms
about the kitchen is that we're almost going back to a lot of things in that 50s kitchen. I mean, for a start, all the units are separate. It wasn't a built-in kitchen, which became the great thing in the 70s and 80s. We're going rather back to separate units now. And also, I think we're using more durable materials. We've been through the throwaway culture, and we now know, unfortunately, we can't get away with it much longer. So that I think much more equipment is starting to be made in in materials that will last. I'm delighted to say. I mean, there was a Kenwood mixer, for instance, on the 50s stand that is virtually the same as the ones that are made now, and they last and last and last.
And when you look in a modern kitchen and walk into the Ideal Old Home Show today, is there anything that you say, oh gosh, that's new, or is it all actually just a redesign of old stuff?
Oh, at the show? Oh no, there's masses of new stuff. I mean, when I go around it, I want almost everything. You know, you go around and just think, oh, I want one of those, I want one of those. It's a great show, I love it. It's 100 years old, it's astonishing. It's still so popular.
Is that like your garden?
Oh, exactly, yes. Yes. So I've got several more of those giant balls. I have them all over the place. Yeah, and we're doing a huge cake of a house to launch the show, you can imagine, so that should be a bit of fun.
I think one of the things that's interesting in the way that we've changed the design of our homes, and particularly our kitchens, is that we tend to use our kitchens much more as living rooms, playrooms now, don't we? They used to be little rooms sort of at the back of the house,
side, yes.
and you'd sort of stay out of sight.
Well, it's lovely you saying that. They've done a wonderful rehash of a thing called the Good Wife Guide from 1958, and they've sort of brought it up to date. But in the 58 version, there are things like when your husband is coming home, make sure you rest a little before he arrives so that you're fresh. Put a little ribbon in your hair, and remember, his topic of conversation is more important than yours.
Of course, Simon, as a recently married man, are those rules?
Is that exactly how your wife behaves?
I wouldn't last very long if I even bought a copy of the book, I suspect. But, in terms of what we're looking at now, what struck you as the major change in 100 years in how we live? Is it that we don't spend time sitting eating meals as a family now? We just sort of congregate in the kitchen?
I suppose the major change, it's rather, as Suzanne was saying, it's the role of the woman. It really has changed. We may still slave away in the house, but we are working as well. And now you've let us out of the box, I don't think you can put us back in again. It's very different.
Well, Jane, it's lovely
It's lovely to see.
I'm glad to hear it. So will your wife be, I'm sure.
She will, yes.
Thanks very much. Fascinating look back, isn't it, and all these gadgets.
A nice glass of red wine waiting when I get home. And the ribbon in the hair. And the ribbon, no, I don't want to push it. Anyway, I'm in enough trouble already.
4 minutes to 9, shall we leave it?
Yes.
Leave it.
Bit while you're
First it
behind.
was Maria, then Joseph. Now it's Nancy and Oliver.
In I'd Do Anything, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber is on the hunt for the latest West End stars.
Viewers will be able to choose Nancy, but the pick of Oliver will be left to the judges. Graham Norton hosts the show, and he spoke to our entertainment reporter, Colin Patterson.
I'd do anything for you, dear, anything.
Please give me another chance.
I can do Nancy. There's a Nancy in me, there really is.
Graham Norton, The Hunt for a Nancy. What are you looking for?
The good thing is we don't know. That is the good thing. This year, I think anyone can play Nancy. You know what I mean? It's a much more wide open thing, isn't it? You're looking for, it should be old, young, big, thin, and they've shown up in their droves this year. Thousands and thousands and thousands of women.
Look at me. You can take it all because this face is free.
Tell us about The Hunt for Oliver, because the public don't get to choose that one.
No, we felt it was just too much, really, to put children through the public vote. So they've come up with a really good idea where each week the 12 perform together, so they never look vulnerable.
Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself one of the family.
And you think it might actually cause a bit of a population explosion?
Listen, I honestly, if you had some regular kids upstairs and you saw these Olivers, you kind of think, let's try again. Maybe we'll get a good one this time.
I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. Well, I called my fish Joseph. I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fanatic. I write plays and musicals.
This series looks like it is once again going to have tears.
Can you take some time off work and find a childminder?
Really? More tears than I was expecting. Because Maria's didn't cry that much. They were kind of, those nuns were tough. The Nancys, I think because also now they know what's at stake. You know, they've seen what's happened to Connie, they've seen what's happened to Lee. It could be them.
Do you know it's Wayne Rooney's favourite film of all time?
Wayne Rooney's?
Wayne Rooney?
Is it the only film he's ever seen?
You saying he's got bad taste?
He saw that and he thought, maybe I'll play football. I'll go outside now, Mom. And he never came back in.
So finally then, what are your hopes for this series?
I hope the public get it right again. They've done a brilliant job for Andrew in the past, and hopefully they will, vote wisely once more.
And you can see I'd Do Anything on BBC One tomorrow night at 7:30.
And you'll be there.
I will. It may be a case of Beauty and the Beast at Cheltenham Racecourse today. Let's find out what Sue has for us.
I think we're talking about the horses, really. Sue, good morning.
Sorry. I say, what an introduction. Thank you very much, Uti. Well, of course, everyone's talking about the Gold Cup and the duel between Kauto Star and Denman. It's captured everyone's imagination, including Julie Coopers, who joins us this morning. Julie, thank you very much. The duel between those two horses, it would almost make a fantastic plot for a novel, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, because, I mean, they've got that, the fact that friends are always the most want to beat each other, do you know what I mean? Rivalry between friends. These horses are next door, and you've got the wonderful, ugly duckling Denman. I mean, I described them earlier in the week as this lovely Sam Thomas, who's very beautiful, sort of racing's answer to, National Hunt's racing answer to 20 Tory. Brad Pitt on a Brontosaurus. I mean, he looks like a great monster, Denman. And then this beautiful Kauto Star with its sort of beautiful ruby, the silver fox on Pegasus. And the Kauto Star seems to fly over the fences, doesn't he?
He does. He's a fantastic jumper. Well, they both are terrific horses. I mean, horse racing is a fantastic backdrop in a way for books, isn't it? I mean, I know you're writing a book at the moment, aren't you, that features very heavily the Gold Cup,
the Gold Cup and the Grand National, and all the earlier things. I think it's a bit, for us, people who love National Hunt, it's a bit like EastEnders, because we love the horses, we love the jockeys, and gradually over the season, the excitement builds up, and we really, I mean, Little Catchit winning on Tuesday was amazing, wasn't it? Tiny little horse beating all the overdogs. It was lovely.
I know you're a big fan of the festival. You were here yesterday as well, weren't you, on Ladies' Day? We both were having a little natter earlier about some of the outfits we saw yesterday. They were quite, well, interesting on a very cold March day to see ladies walking around in beautiful outfits, but not much of them.
No, I mean, really, very, quite
brave.
No, but I did think, I mean, these amazing sort of women who look like greyhounds with their racehorse faces, with wonderful hats, but really Ascotty hats, weren't they?
They were very, that's what struck me, actually.
And sort of what they call fascinators, lots of those, awful feather things. But I thought everybody looked very good, and they really sort of bothered to dress, because it was a cold day, wasn't it?
It was very cold and very windy and very rainy by the end of it. It is a terrific duel, Kauto Star and Denman. The festival is terrific socially for the area, isn't it? And I know you live in the Cotswolds. Just explain to us how important Cheltenham is in the sort of social calendar.
Well, we love it, but it is an important event in the world. I mean, all over the world people want to come to Cheltenham because it's the biggest National Hunt Festival in the world. And also global warming has fortunately made all the daffodils out, so all the local businesses are thriving. I mean, Cheltenham town has never looked more beautiful because of the daffodils and the flowers. And we're all thriving, and it's been an amazing day's racing yesterday, which Cheltenham coolly coped with, didn't they? Which was extraordinary.
They did a lot of races yesterday, a lot more today, 9 today. The big one, the Gold Cup. And now Claire Boulding said Denman. Jenny Pittman wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't pick either of them. For you, Denman or Kauto Star today?
Dead heat.
Oh, now come on, get off that fence.
No, I've backed Kauto Star, but I don't mind if he doesn't win, because I love Denman too. I adore Denman because he's such he's quite cross and retreats into his box. He's not terribly friendly, not to everybody. He plays it cool.
Okay, so Kauto Star, both. Okay, Julie, it's lovely to see you. Enjoy your day. Good luck with the racing. Thank you very much. That's it from Cheltenham. Denman or Kauto Star? Back to you.
Yeah. Dead heat stays, isn't it? Thank you very much, Sue.
Yes, Kauto Star and Denman, the beauty and the beast of the introduction, of course. Now, Joseph Maul is here, who plays Jesus in The Passion. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Playing Jesus must be a bit of a challenge. We're going to speak about that in just a few minutes' time.
One of the toughest gigs.
Yeah. First, here's a quick last look at what's happening where you are this morning.
Good morning. The funeral takes place today of Mohammed Shafiq, the father of 7, who was murdered in a Burnley park. The 50-year-old was stabbed as he tried to break up a fight involving his teenage son. 4 people have been charged in connection with his murder. A prison reform group has criticised the government for not doing enough to prevent female inmates committing suicide after a number of deaths at Style Prison. 7 women have died at the jail, prompting a government review that made a number of recommendations. But the pressure group Inquest claims little has changed. A civic ceremony will take place later to reveal the developers who will be turning the former site of the Kay Shoes factory in Kendal into a £100 million shopping and apartment complex. The factory closed in 2003. Britain's oldest art space, the Blue Coat, reopens in Liverpool this weekend in a refurbished building at a cost of £12.5 million. The Blue Coat's been on the artistic landscape for nearly 300 years and has featured works by the likes of Van Gogh, Picasso and Tracy Emin. Finally, it's the launch of Sports Relief today. Bolton-born Tess Daly's been to Bangladesh recently to find out how some of the money raised last year has been used. And you can find out more about that and some of the fundraising activities taking place in the northwest with Gordon and Ranveer at 6:30 this evening. The weather fine and dry today with sunny spells, highs of 10. Tonight, rain heavy at times, misty too, lows of 4. That's all from me. Gordon will be back at 1:30. Bye for now.
Hello again, welcome back. Now, it's a story that's 2,000 years old, but a new retelling of the last days of Jesus promises to be a fresh and vibrant vision of Jerusalem in the year 33 AD.
Some Christian groups, though, have accused the Passion of rewriting the Gospels. The drama's producers argue they're putting the characters' actions into context. Well, actor Joseph Moore plays the role of Jesus. I'm going to be speaking to him shortly. First, let's have a look at the moment he enters Jerusalem.
No, the gate's important. My father will never abandon me.
Joseph is here with us now. It has to be said, as roles go, they don't get any bigger than this. But did you have any mixed emotions when they said you've got the part?
Yeah, I think went pretty quiet for a while, and tried to call every friend I could just to sort of see if I could get them to react to what I'd been told would be playing, and unfortunately everybody was at work, so I just spent 3 hours in sort of numbstruck, saying, "Why me? Why me? I don't understand why I'm doing this, or why somebody thinks I'm right for it." And I was thinking, everybody has, an image of Jesus in their head, and most of the people in the Western world could probably close their eyes and, muster up their own imaginings of what he looks like and what his teachings mean. And suddenly you think, well, crikey, somebody at the BBC obviously closed their eyes and thought I was it, which is quite an odd thought, to say the least.
Tell us the story. Did you try and get in touch with Robert Powell, who played Jesus?
Did I try and get in touch with him?
Yes.
I did. Yeah, I did email him. I was very nervous before we started shooting, and about a week before, I thought I need to speak to somebody who's been through this experience. So I emailed his agent, and actually we didn't actually make contact with each other until I actually arrived at the airport to fly out to Morocco, and I walked down to my terminal and went into the lavatory, and there was Robert Powell washing his hands, as it were, and so yeah, we had a chat then.
And what advice did he give you?
He just said it'll be one of the hardest jobs you ever do, and he wasn't far wrong, but it was also one of the most enjoyable jobs as well. So combination of both, I think, in equal measure.
Because you were filming in Morocco, as you say. Was it? I mean, it must be very intense working in that sort of atmosphere, but you managed to have some fun as well, did you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were some great times, and just an incredible cast of people, and I was the least known there, so I had an amazing supporting background of artists who kind of taken care of me, really. As much as I was supposed to be sort of leading the band of 12 men, it was 12 men looking after me, really. But it was an extraordinary experience, and obviously the heat, it's extremely hot out there, and we were going on set on some days, and there'd be 500 sheep, 300 birds, 19 main cast, 170 crew, 800 extras. So it was just all this, melody of sort of huge amounts of people.
Let's have another look at part of the programme here. Jesus is visiting the temple for the first time.
is here.
Judas, it's time.
You've not actually seen this yourself, have you?
No, not all the way through, no. It's always a bit weird just seeing yourself up there. Oh, blimey. Is that what it looks like? It looks fantastic, but...
Obviously, taking on this role, it's a huge responsibility, and it's not going to go unnoticed, obviously. This week, Christian groups accusing the BBC of rewriting the Gospels. Christian Voice said the sympathetic portrayal of some of the characters, such as Judas, as we saw in that little bit there, a misrepresentation of events. You must have known you would walk into a storm, even a small storm of some kind.
I think you're never going to be able to tell this story without some sort of controversy or upsetting somebody. And I know that none of us set out to do that. And actually, if the most important thing for us to actually was to open the story up, to enlighten it, and to flesh it out and give these characters a much bigger background. I mean, not only with Judas, but also, you know, we meet Barabbas, who normally we only hear about at the trial. And we meet him in episode 1 in this, and we find out about why he does what he does. So it gives everybody a context to the whole piece. Every single character, every single disciple has their own sort of wants and needs and desires and characteristics. So it just opens the whole thing out to make it less one-dimensional.
As we said, probably one of the most challenging roles there is, and not made easier, I suspect, by the fact that, I mean, you had labyrinthitis as a youngster, which left you very deaf, and you actually wear hearing aids. Did you wear them during the filming as well? I actually tend to take them out when I'm working. I mean, I wear them to talk to the director, Michael, and with Nigel, the producer, and with Frank Deasy, the writer. We all collaborated a lot together before scenes and chatted. But then when we're actually doing a shot, I often take them out.
Does it have an impact on either the way you work or the way you're perceived as an actor, or indeed on the way you look at characters and the parts that you play?
I don't know. I think people's perceptions of me is probably the only difference that happens. For me, I'm just me, and I don't know any different. To be honest, you know, I've been hearing impaired longer than I've been hearing now. I lost my hearing when I was 16. I'm now 33, so yeah, I've almost been hearing impaired as long as I was hearing for. So I don't.
It's not the most obvious profession to go into for someone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was a friend at drama school who said, "Joe, you're deaf and you're dyslexic. Give up, man." And I kind of thought, that's a very good point, actually. And but unfortunately, I decided I had my eyes set on being an actor, and sort of just kept struggling away.
And what's next?
Next, strangely enough, I'm just about a dash from here and get to rehearsals at the Almeida, where we're doing a play called The Last Days of Judas Iscariot.
So the theme returns.
The theme returns a little bit, not quite. It's different. It's written by an amazing American writer called Stephen Adly Guirgis, and it's sort of set in Hope, which is in East Purgatory, and it's a New York type setting, so it's a bit different.
Well, we wish you all the luck with that.
Well, lovely to meet you. Thanks.
You too. Thanks
you very much.
Indeed.
The Passion.
8:30 Sunday on.
Sunday 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Yes. Now, time to go back to Cheltenham, and Matt is there for one last look at the weather. Morning, Matt.
Thank you, Susanna. Yes, anticipation is continuing to grow here against a thrilling Gold Cup. A few spots of rain this afternoon, as it will be across southern areas, but further north, dry and bright. Have a lovely weekend.
Matt, thank you very much indeed. That's all this morning from us.
Yes, join us over the weekend, and on Monday's programme, Anna Jones will be here with a new album. But thanks for joining us this morning. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.